Craig this morning. He apparently I bitched one too many times about being the first person in the morning, so he changed me to park the car so he could tell me about this the rest of the year, I'm sure. So the problem is that, of course, that a few of us, names to be withheld, stayed up a little late last night, and then I went back and had another hour of work, and then went to sleep, got up 4 hours later. I was awake for the first one. I was good. I had Coke. I was popping. Now, I wish I had spoken this morning. But anyway, so kind of what happened is I saw that I was supposed to be speaking on emotions today, and I felt like I had already touched a lot on that yesterday. So I decided, because I had a lot of people asking me questions, well, maybe I'd answer a few of those questions, because I come from, yes, I still remember the beginning, but LMBP Publishing, my company, puts out anywhere from 9 to 15 books a month. And then we have a cadre of like 6 to 9 artists that we work with. And we have, probably 12 audio artists, talents, including some of the big names in the industry that are part of, who we work with. And so I wanted to give you an insight on some of the infrastructure, because there are some people who are probably going to be reaching that pretty soon. Of course, this blue light, do we need this? I don't know how to shut that. Okay, we're good. You can give me white. I look a little better. Okay, not. Okay, so one of the first things that came up was, how do we communicate inside of LMBPN, especially if we're going to either communicate with like a beta team or an ARC team, that a lot of people use Facebook. We've moved to a company called Slack, S-L-A-C-K. And it has a web app, and it has a tablet app and a phone app and everything like that. And it's really kind of comprised of, you put everybody in, and then you create a channel on a subject, and that channel can be either public or private. If you make it private, then only the people in that channel will see it, which means that you keep it clean, the menu, for everybody else. We have 100 core members and about 20 part-time members in that group right now, so we have 120 people. There's a huge benefit for those that are in it, especially if they have an extra part of their company, like they do other stuff, right? And most of my collaborators do. But we have, for example, Tim Gerard Reynolds in there. Tim Gerard Reynolds is a well-known, or Tom. It was actually Justin that spoke with him, but anyway, he's in there. And one of the things that's kind of cool is, if you want to talk with him about doing your book, then any of my collaborators don't need to go to his website or go to Facebook and say, hey, I'm so-and-so. They can just go in there and hit him up and do a private conversation, and he already knows kind of what's going on. So when you use Slack, just remember you're creating your own environment of connections. And so if you have a beta group, if you have an ARC group, the question kind of came up is like, I've got 1,200 people that have said they'll help me with my book. Good Lord, you do not want to give 1,200 people your book to do like a beta reading and say, give me back my problems. Don't do that. We went to 16 people one time, and that was hard. So I know that, we had 50, Barrett, Mr. B over here talked about it just earlier. And so just in that, you can take the 1,200 that are in Facebook, you can say, hey, we're going to Slack. That'll take you from 1,200 down to some number. And then you can find your 5, 10, 15, 20 that are going to do your first pass. And that'll get you cleaner, because you don't need 1,000 people telling you the same letter or the same word is misspelled wrong. And so we have a Slack group for kind of the authors and all the operations. We have a Slack group what's called the Just-in-Time team. And I'll get to them in a minute. And that allows us to separate what's going on, because there are a lot of times the Just-in-Time team are going to make comments amongst themselves that will cause authors like Craig to cry. Yes, he'll tell you this. So Slack, that's one of the things that we moved to whenever we wanted to become more efficient. Another thing that kind of came up this morning is allow the consequences. If you're doing collaboration, and we had a situation occur where one of our authors, we don't push people. It's like, if you're going to get it to us on this time, we're expecting on that time, and life happens. But if life happens a second time, that seems kind of odd. I'm not going to ask others down the line to make this person's mistake, for whatever reason it is. So if an author comes in and they're, we have a specific saying, oh, you're going to give this to us on the 9th, well, great. We've slotted you into the just-in-time team on the 12th. That's fantastic. You come out on the 15th. And they come in on the 14th, no. You've missed your slot. And in our company, if we're doing a 15-book month, we have almost every other day locked to a new book. And if you want to come out, we have to decide. It's like, well, you could come out on the weekend, not the best choice, just if you're interested. So allow them to have consequences. You missed it, this is what we can do. Legal, DocuSign.com is what we use for our legal. So I believe Mr. Lawyer over here on the left, you can't, if you find a legal document, you can basically copy that thing. Yes? What's the rule about that?
Once it becomes public information, because that's why a lot of law firms won't publicize wills and things like that, because you can copy it because it's a legal document, it's a legal firm. To copyright a document like that is problematic at best. Okay. So contracts, yeah, you'll see them plagiarized to high heaven because the law, as far as legal documents, rewards plagiarization because this has already been approved by like a judge saying, yes, this is a valid clause. So then everybody will steal that clause and say, hey, it's valid for this because you have that precedent set in law.
Okay, so that's something that you might want to know if you're looking for different things is plagiarize the shit out of it. So we use DocuSign, and the reason is, I mean, we are just like all of y'all, we're worldwide. So we use people and we connect with people, we collaborate with people all over the world. And it's very easy for us to just go into DocuSign, set it up. Stephen Campbell does this, he's Zen Master Walking. And then so, you know, I get a signature, the other person gets a signature, I'll get an email. When I see it, I'll go in there, hit my go. Eventually, maybe a couple of hours, a couple of days, I'll get something that says the other person has signed it. And now we both have copies, it's both online. I don't have to worry about it wherever in the world I happen to be working. I can get access to it. Artists, well, we have choices. Art is something that I've gone all the way up to incredibly fucking expensive to relatively inexpensive. And let me talk to you a little bit about that. So in the beginning, best cover art, Andrew Dobell talked about this. You know, you have different things that you can do, but like Gary talked about, you might not have much of a budget. So I did my first covers. They cost about $12 or maybe 20 because I bought a few. I just looked for a place where I had a model that kind of looked like my character, and they had enough pictures of her that I could kind of slap something together. From that, I ended up growing to enough money to where I could afford to have a real model do it, because I realized relatively early on that if I grabbed a bunch of stuff off of stock images, then anybody could grab my character. And since I was growing, I was like, somebody's gonna get smart enough to do this. And as I've seen things like people just basically take Bella Forrest covers and just duplicate that shit out of it, it's like, okay, this is a thing. And so I went ahead and paid the money to have a model be brought in and do all of these unique covers, and it was a good investment. But so that's to the high end. On the low end, I didn't really understand enough about pre-made covers, and I didn't know that there were thousands upon thousands of them out there, and that there's individuals who are willing to do some really good work for $150. And so just kind of going toward that, you can go to DeviantArt if you're not familiar with that. So DeviantArt.com, and expect to lose time. There's a lot of crap on there, but you will it will be a lot of your time to go through there and find someone. You can, Scott Paul, as far as I'm concerned, he's like the master of finding the obscure individual who's willing to give you an amazing license to put this on your cover for $50. And he would go there and he would just find this opportunity and just contact them and say, hey, I'm this author. Just wondering if, you know, he would mention, I've had other people license it for $50. Would you be willing to do it as well? And then they would. Some wouldn't. Some would want $2,000, and he'd be like, no, like, next one. The other one is ArtStation. When you're looking to ramp up your art to the next level, there are a lot of artists on ArtStation that you can go through, and even when you think you might be getting there in 6 months, start your search early. Because not only that, you might have a situation where the artist is willing, but it's going to take them 4 months to get to you. So don't be there 4 months later when you need it in 2 weeks. Come back earlier and start the process. Cover cost, editing artists. So I talked a little bit about cover, but here's what happened to me in 2017. We grew. Now in 2016, we were already over $500,000 in income in the company. And we grew multiple X of that. So time was at a premium. And we have a bunch of collaborations, we have a bunch of things that are going on, and it was very easy to say, okay, let's do this, sign off on it, it looks good, and then go on to the next project. And in some cases, we had some screw-ups happen of no one intended this to happen, what we learned. An example of this is I signed off on having a dual model shoot, a dual expensive model shoot. And what happened is when the models got to the location, one of them was fantastic, the other one was apparently a face model, which means all of the stuff we had given her to fit wasn't going to fit. And we, not only that, but since she was like a face model or a hand model or something, she didn't really know how to act. So you have one individual who's amazing, and you have one individual who's stony. So what do? Well, we've already invested $2,000 in order to do this model shoot and everything, and then we have to get rid of that model and bring in another one. So there's another 700 pounds or something, which is another $1,000. So, you know, we have that. So now we're $3,000 into 0 covers, right? So that was a little bit of learning, and then we do this, but not only that, but it was a very unique genre, and we invested to get the clothes for that genre. So they are fantastic covers, but we'll never probably, you know, do that again because they are fantastically expensive covers. And so what I learned from that is, if you're going to do that, you probably need to know exactly how many books you're going to get into to try to make sure that the cost per book is going to go down. So we know that, you know, what I did with Bethany Ann, the first Arthurian Gambit, where I went cheap and I grew it, and then I reinvested that money, just like Barry was talking about earlier. You know, I need to get back to that mentality. And if you're a publisher, here's how I promote or suggest you might look at it. If you have the ability to publish 1 million books that cost you nothing by hitting a red button, hit the button, and I'm not talking crap books, but 1 million books for nothing, would you hit the button? And your answer should be yes, because it will basically print money. If you have the ability to hit the green button, that is 1 book for $1 million, the answer should be no, I should not. So where on that spectrum do you want to be if you're a publisher? Now, some of you are really writers and you're only going to be doing your stuff. This isn't necessarily a question for you. But if the closer you get to the 1 million books for $0, however you can hack that is very compelling for you as an income stream. You know, I see a few heads shaking that you're catching on to what I'm suggesting, which means that you as a publisher who's not going to be doing your own books need to figure out a way to constrain your costs to get an amazing cover as best as you can, great editing as best you can, understand blurbs, understand how to promote it, and how to bring them together, a la collaboration, universes. That's one way that you do it, right? Because anyone who comes into Terry Henry post-apocalyptic, when they're talking about Bethany Ann, usually gets curious and they go find Bethany Ann over here in paranormal. And if they go through Bethany and paranormal into space, and they go jump back over to maybe the Extinction Myth with L.E. Clark, and then maybe in the back of that or another one, they might find out about Oris Sarin, and they jump over to that completely different universe. And then they go through some of those, and maybe they can go over to Abby Lynn Norris. You get the idea? You're connecting these things. And if you can do them effectively, and you can help the next person bring them up, and I'll talk about Timothy Ellis one more time because I spent a few hours with him on Friday morning. Okay, Friday morning. So Timothy has a universe built. He's already, you know, has multiple books in it. Now, between the two universes, there might be some disparity, but plenty of you in here are new to the game, but you have 1 or 2 books. And there's maybe it's like, if you'd like to collaborate with someone with 4 years, 5 years of experience in the genre and in this particular industry, you might want to talk to him and say, hey, see if there's an opportunity to write in his universe. Because, you know, some of the reasons that people come and write in either Oris Sarin or Arthurian or anything has nothing to do with the fact that they're looking necessarily always to get a great amount of money if they like it. In my universe, it's the fact that I'm going to bring fans and readers into that book where Martha is, And then from there, they're going to find out about them because we have their books listed in the back, and it's a great marketing avenue to come back to them for the next few years. Because remember, if you're investing in something, you're wanting to know, are they going to be around? Because if they're going to be around 3 or 4 years, you're going to probably be doing your own thing. And then you're just going to get a slow trickle of whatever it is you're collaborating with over to your stuff time after time. And there's value in that. Drama-free. That is interesting because you don't know what's going to cause drama with anybody or anyone. Now you get the idea with some. And so it's like you're just trying to work with them, and it's like, okay. For example, we in Queer Theory and Gambit, and me specifically, I like to help the fans that come up to me. And so I was very open, just anybody, brand new writers, you know, if they had stuff. And we went through some of those processes, and what I learned is it takes a lot of effort in order to get somebody from no book to 1 or 2 books under the belt. That amount of learning is not something that we can invest in anymore because we just can't. So we lost time, effort, money, so on and so forth in trying to do this and to have it kind of greater. And it could be that the person was there, but then they weren't. It wasn't that it was a good to love. So we came up with another solution I'll talk about in a little bit later, but minimize your drama to the best of your ability. Find out about whether or not you connect as a personality level, because you might connect great at others, but at a personality level, is it something that you connect with? Street team and JIT readers. Okay, so in the beginning, I didn't have a clue what ARC team was, street team was. I didn't even understand these terms. I didn't know the difference between a beta team and any of it. But I can say that we don't use or have a legitimate street team. It is very effective. And so we're looking at trying to implement it much better, but we don't have one. But what we do, yes?
Can you explain what that means?
A streets team.
Yes.
Okay. So specifically an ARC or a street, but a street team is a bunch of people that proselytize your book. They will go on the streets and talk about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you want street teams. You're going to feed them. You're going to take really good care of these marketing people because word of mouth marketing is amazing. It is what is really, truly the best. Because even if you don't put out another book, but somebody is coming in there, they're laughing and they're telling their friends about it, free marketing, and that's the one that's going to convert the best. But an ARC team, advanced reader copy, is kind of another situation. But what you're doing there is you're giving them an advanced reader copy and you're asking them, if you like this book, would you please review it when it comes out? Because reviews are very important. So, and then we have what I call a just-in-time team, and this has to do with the fact of how editing came about in my company, because in the beginning, like Barry, I didn't edit. And I think like Barry, I was kind of assumptive on how good I was, which wasn't. And it really has nothing to do with, because originally called it a minimally viable product, and because my editing wasn't top-notch, people thought I meant a crap product. No, minimally viable or MVP comes from the concept in the IT world of giving someone the core functionality to find out whether or not anyone wanted the next one. I was interested in finding out, was this story going to resonate? And if it wasn't going to resonate, then I was going to wrap it up and go to the next one until I found a story that resonated. And I think, one of the things I wish you had talked about a little bit more was the bug, right? Because that was really, truly your first effort, Barry, and it didn't resonate. It didn't work. And he wasn't exactly sure. And I remember you coming and asking about it. And then you're like, I got this other idea, this whole space thing. And I got to tell you, I supported him strictly on his cover. So if you didn't have that blurb that you put on there, because I probably wouldn't have supported you nearly as much because it didn't make me fucking laugh. Because I remember laughing about that thing. It was hilarious. So we went with editors. We had beta readers. They helped us. They did Grammarly. We had a system to get this stuff out fast. But we still had some errors come in. This is not an insignificant. We had 8 people going through and everything else. And so I was like, you know what? Because people would come back and so we'd really like just to help you. I'm like, all right, I'm finished on Wednesday. All the beta reading's done. It's going to go out Thursday night. Who wants to read it the next 24 hours and tell me my mistakes? They were a just in time telling me about mistakes. That's what a JIT team is for us. That's what started it. And so we ended up getting some readers, and these men and women are fucking gracious. And they are amazing to be able to go and find. And what we did find, Stephen Campbell told me sometime later, even the authors who pay editors, and it didn't matter which editors we're talking about, because pretty much all of them were like, my editors walk on water. Great, then do them and then come in, and we're still putting them through the just in time, because the just in time know all of the stories, and if you guys mess up somehow, they're gonna catch it. They still found about as many mistakes as any other editor. So in general, is that a fair statement to say? Yeah, in general, all editors are going to find mistakes, and if you have a just-in-time team, they will find most of them for you. We also know that a few of your just-in-time people are going to be just fanatically amazing. A few of them might go through the whole book and go, that was the cleanest book I've ever read. I've only found 2 errors. And you're like, well, that's strange, because John just a minute ago found 40. Those 2 errors, almost always one of them, no one will have found. Can't explain it. That's just our reality of doing, 150 books. And so that's what we use with just in time. That's how we get it through. And we've actually had situations where I remember Chris and Lee's first book, they came back and said, we don't understand the context of where you're at. We had to write a prologue to help kind of set the scene that we knew. The 3 of us that were writing this thing, we understood it, but we didn't understand that we didn't explain it to them, so they had no clue. So they'll come back occasionally with that and help us. SAG-AFTRA, okay, Screen Actors Guild. One of the things that we learned when we went into audio, so I had connected with Emily Beresford for my series back in November, and of course she was busy in November, December, and I'm totally patient. And so when she finally got started in January, I was like, yes, finally. And so when we looked at starting to ramp up, because that was just one, and I'm like, I'm not doing that again. I'm not going to ACX and interviewing 21 different people just to find the one person that can do it. Now we pay completely, so we don't do a split. And part of the reason is just looking at the rights and looking at what if we want to get out of ACX in the future. And so we went down that path, and we started to reach out. Now, Justin Sloan is really interesting to work with, because he will come back and go, I want that person. Now, he's been upgraded one time by Ellie Clark, and I'll tell that story in a second. But anyway, he comes back and says, I heard Kate Rudd, and I want her for my books. And I'm like, who's Kate Rudd? So I have to go back and look at this, and I find out that she's like a well-regarded, well-respected narrator who does this amazing work and generally only works for the trade pubs. And so we contact her, and we have to explain who we are. We're LMVPN, we're hoping to do this, and we're kind of indie based, and oh, by the way, we'd like to see if you could do about 20 books. And she's like, yeah, right. So I'll tell you what, guys, y'all are really kind of nice. I'll do the first few, and then, we'll see about going, and maybe I can give you 2 in a couple months in the summer when I'm slow, but I got to work with my traditionally published customers. I'm like, I understand that. That's no problem. We really appreciate it, Kate. Now, the first time I listened to one of her audiobooks was Reclaiming Honors, the first book. I'm driving down the freeway in my car, and all of a sudden I put this on and go, let me just see kind of what Kate sounds like. And she starts talking. You know how narrators just kind of grab you and pull you into a story? She's doing this, and I'm realizing about 1 minute into it going, who the fuck wrote this? Shit, we did. So that's the kind of quality that Justin's effort brought us up to. And then we had done enough books with Kate that she's like, so I'm part of the Screen Actor Guild, and in order for me to kind of continue this, and for me to meet my quotas for money, right, would you guys possibly be willing to spend the extra like 13.5% to route this through the SAG, and that way I can get insurance and do other things? And we're like, hell yeah, I want you, if you can have insurance, great. So we made a connection with the Screen Actors Guild, and it started allowing us to create further relationships. And so if you're looking at growing bigger, and you want the ability to just call up the Screen Actors Guild and go, I'd like to possibly be hiring 5 different, audio narrators next year and a half. They're going to want to go, great. Why? Because their job is to sit there and create opportunities for their people. And so when we talked with them over 2 or 3 different conversations, they were trying to figure out, who the hell are you? You know, it's not like we had 50 books already written. We're the new guys on the block. And once we finished with them, we have a relationship that basically says whoever is in the SAG that we want to use as a narrator, if we can't somehow get a hold of them, we can just call them, they'll get a hold of them. And you have instant respect of that situation going, well, it's not that, John over here, John Hindmarsh, maybe I didn't know him, but Craig's like, oh, John's a good guy. I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk to John. Screen Actor Guild calls up and says, yeah, LMVPN's a good guy. Oh, well, maybe I should talk to them. So look at that situation. Invest in yourself. When we grew, and in America, if you make enough money, you're going to get 40% taxes, which sounds like a little small to some of the countries around Europe, I understand, but for me, it's a lot of freaking money. And I'm like, you know what? I believe in what we're doing. I believe in creating products and moving that product and effectively moving the taxes to another year. Because if I spend $100,000, then I know 40,000 of that was on the government's dime anyway. So I'm effectively investing 60,000 to do whatever I want to do. And so we spent, close to probably between 150 and 200,000 just on audio last year. And so we invest in ourselves to the best of our ability, to the new books, to the new series. That's one of the things we do, but we do it out of income. We're not heavy debt. So we're carrying that forward and we're moving that. So we do invest in ourselves. Okay, pages versus groups for y'all. We have a major page that's got 9,200 fans on it for Criterion Gambit. And we have a group and it might have 300 or 400 people in it. 550. And I hear it a lot. Most authors that I talk to now are going to groups that have that interaction. I still use a lot of the page because that's what I grew up on, right? In the last 2.5 years, I grew up. And so I use pages a lot because I also advertise off of the page. But the groups are something that you completely can look into, and a lot of people, like, oh, that's just you stretching. Stay away from it there, Brandon.
Somebody cut me up till 2.
That was damn good. Society 6. I always wanted to be able to do something for my fans and give them little mugs or give them things to wear, but it was outsourced and it was high quality. And I wish I could remember her name. Hess, J.A. Hess. Sorry? Haas. Okay. She was at the first Smarter Artist back in 2016 that I went to. And she said something, she said a lot of things, but this one I took and I implemented. Society6, that's the number 6.com, is a place that you can go and put up your artwork and other things. And then of course you can order mugs, and they'll often do sales, but you as the person who put the store up can get a discount as well. They do high quality stuff, and that's what I was interested in. There might be better ones, but if you don't have one, at least, yes?
Dazzle.co.uk is quite good for the UK as well.
Dazzle?
Dazzle.
D-A-Z-Z-Z.
Z-Z-L-E.
Yeah, I know. Who said Z? Was it Mark? Yes, Mark said Z yesterday. I'm like, S-A-T-Z-E-D-O-N. So that one, goals. I do have goals every year. Last year, or before last year, one of my goals was to be a top 100 author in Amazon. I looked to hack that, and I did. So in the last year, I've only not been in the top 100 in Amazon like 10 days, and that was back early last year. Income. I wanted to try to give out, right? So I had these things related to the hacking, and I wanted to see if I could get my collaborators to where I paid out $500,000. Basically, could I get up to $50,000 a month? I pay out. And we got that. We got some months that were 70 or 80. So, but just in last year, I think $550,000. And he's shaking his head because Craig is previous to his author stuff. He was a business consultant who used Excel all the time. And so whenever I get this massive spreadsheet, and I've had this question asked me a couple of times, how do you figure out how to pay people? How long does that take? And I go, about 10 seconds for us to get it to Craig. And then Craig takes about 10 minutes and he gets it back to us. Because he's figured out a way to figure out the percentages because we, on our collaborations, they're percentage based. And so it's like money comes in, we split it out, money goes out. And so that's something that we do just, from the goals, wanting to hit that, and we did. And we're looking at this year's goals, I would say if there were anything, is we are modifying some of our storage studio efforts and figuring out how best to grow the business, at the end of the day. In 2016, it was at a macro scale, 20 books to 50K. Folks, we're 17,000 plus strong. That's nothing to do on me anymore. I'm just kind of the poster boy for that. And then we have, LMVP in publishing went from one guy, Michael Anderle, to 20 plus in 2017. And we'll be at God knows how many, 30 plus. And we're looking at different ways to reinvest that money back into new opportunities. It's a great opportunity. It's a great time to be writing, but just realize it is a vicious time to be writing. And I don't mean it just from what I hear about romance. Am I wrong? Vicious?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not wrong. But think about a person like me, and I'm not going to be apologetic for this, but just think about me for a minute. I put out 100 plus books last year with different collaborators. We will do 100 to 200 this year. We put out 80 audiobooks starting from nothing. How many we put out this year will be at least 70 to 80 more probably. I won't go push as hard as that because that's a heavy investment for getting back the money 18 months later. Whereas if I do an ebook, I'll have the money back in 90 days. It doesn't make good business sense all the time. So we have to look at what we're doing there, trying to figure out how to invest in that. What happens? Let's say, what if? What happens if you have a competitor who knows the business? And I am, for all intents and purposes, a competitor, right? Because I sell entertainment. That's what I sell. I've got $100,000 in a month that I can say, what do I want to invest with this? And I'm getting smarter. I'm not doing $17,000 months of covers going, fuck. I'm learning from my mistakes. And then we have others that are doing it. What's going on? I don't say this to scare you because you have great stories in you. But I am telling you this because our future, we're not kids anymore. That was back in 2012, 2013. Joanna Penn is doing 10 years. 10 years she's been in this at the end of this year. I told her jokingly, you're the grandmother of indie publishing. I can tell you she wasn't fond of that. She is, however, okay, and I have witnesses, with the fairy godmother of indie publishing. So I hope to say that all the time, and I really hope y'all encourage this because I think it'd be fucking hilarious. But she's seen it. This is the second wave. The second wave is coming on. The first wave, the people that were here at the first wave, and she can name names because she was there, I wasn't. The only one I know is Hugh Howard. And from my experience of what I kind of saw, when I came in 2015 on K-Boards in 2016, when I was there, I saw that the help, and there were plenty of help. There was plenty of help, encouragement, and plenty of dicks. I didn't have time for dicks. I still don't have time for dicks. Imagine that. Either way. If my wife is watching. And so, I totally forgot where I was going.
Support and encouragement.
Hugh Harry and
I'm sorry?
You mentioned
Help,
Hugh
support,
Harry.
encouragement that was available back then.
Oh.
Now.
Second wave. We're in the second
Yes, the second wave. There we go. We're the second wave, but you know what's going on? The second wave has now got a lot of people like yourself, or Shane Silvers, or Michael Scott Earl, or Craig Martelle, and I could keep naming. We're business guys. We understand what to do with this. We understand how to put our money back into this. We understand how to help people and how to make them better. And all of a sudden we do something that's fucking phenomenal that no one is really doing right now. Like creating universes and putting collaborators out and all of a sudden building something up and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's the right model over there, right? How many people, I was surprised to find it neat whenever, let's see, Domino Finn. He said, hey, Mike, and there's like 5 or 6 of us and we're just walking somewhere. Like, yeah, what's going on, Domino? The guy's got a hat that's cool as shit. You know, and I'm like, man, he rocks that hat. I'm jealous of that hat. And so Domino's like, hey, what do you think it was like being the one who changed indie publishing? The fuck you talking about? I'm like, what are you talking about? You're just talking about 20 books or what's going on? It's like, because 20 books just kind of grew. And he goes, no, I'm talking about the collaborations in the universe. Okay, apparently my head's been in the sand. What are you talking about? So he says, I don't know if it to be true or false, I just take him at his word. He says, you know, a lot of people are all building universes now because this Arthurian gambit is ruling a lot, right? And we did some of those things on purpose, right? We looked at it and said, you know, I've got 20 books in the top 100 of genetics, in space opera genetics, you know? I need another genre to go to. I'm just going to flood this. Let's go to post-apocalyptic. Hey, Grant, I know you know me only 20 books, but I need some stuff. Maybe would you be willing to collaborate on this? Vance wanted. He said yes. Then we went and did some others. And we did some others. We haven't touched romance yet because, unfortunately, my person that was going to do that had some family issues. And so that is changing some. So when he asked me that, and I'm like, really? Is that what's going on? Did we all do something with this in our Sarah? Yes.
Michael, you do realize you're turning into a traditional publisher.
Yeah.
I give way more money back than traditional publishing. Let's put it this way. I wanted to say, fuck you so bad.
I didn't mean to offend you by saying that.
Oh, no, I get you. But yes.
You're growing, you're innovating the business.
Yes, no, I get it. I appreciate the compliment, but I was told this by someone someone last night, and I'm like,
and you just associated me with that person. No, it was
no. Well, okay, they were accurate, but we have such a negative aspect, and I do. Let me not put it on everyone here. I have such a negative aspect about trade clubs, and hate what I feel they've done, and been mercenary. And some of it, honestly, is probably from ignorance on my part. I will be upfront about that. I don't understand how some of this stuff got created and what they need to do. But when I hear stories, and I heard a story recently of now it's not even a science fiction writer I have ever read, but I've seen his name, which means he's been on enough really important books for me to know who he is. Could not afford a conference fee. I'm like, that's fucking stupid. I didn't like that. So I had an opportunity. So Lynn Stigler, she's gonna kill me. So Lynn reached out to me one time. She was sick. She's a voracious reader. She reads my stuff. She's an editor. So of course my first question is, oh shit. But she says something that she's like, I'd like to talk to you about your editing. But she said something that I was curious. She goes, I used to edit for Banned Books. Banned Books, David Weber, John Ringo, some of these really big guys. These are the ones where this came from. This company I know. And I'm like, wow, she was around when the real shit happened. You know, Mark Stigler, her husband, had a couple of books published. He had gone back, you know, pretty much they all worked full time. He had recently retired. She was looking at some things. I wanted to talk about the old stories. You know, this is the golden age for me because I was young. And so I wanted to talk to her. I said, yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you. And so we got to talking. So then I found out what she could possibly do for me. I'm like, let me try you on a book. And then I fell in love with her. And now she's hiring people strictly because of the amount of quantity of work we throw on her. You know? But more important to this is her husband's Mark Stigler, to this story anyway, not to you, Lynn. And Mark, he's coming out with another book. He was writing it, right? This is a gentleman that has got quite a bit in the history of things. Interestingly enough, he's starting to see what Lynn sees, right? He knows traditional publishing. Now, I'd already stolen Martha, but Martha had already drank the Kool-Aid. So that wasn't a real big deal there. It wasn't real hard to take Martha. But Mark, on the other hand, now, I love you, Ban, but I had the chance to see he has three choices. Go to Ban, do it himself, or come to LMBPN. And 2017, one of my like, oh, it would be so cool if I grabbed a traditionally published author, and they live close to Vegas, and we have lunch, and I asked them, I said, I will help you. You're Lynn's husband. You don't have to give me a dime. I will tell you whatever you need to know about becoming an independently published author. But he doesn't want to do that yet. He knows traditional, sees the money, that's good, but he only wants to take a baby step. He wants some support. He knows my company. He says yes. You know how Apple gives 70% back to the people? And so does Amazon now, thanks to Apple. Mark gets 70% of his money. Not 6, not 7.5, not 12. I gave 70% back to him. So we have an agreement. I did the covers, we got all this done, I'm teaching him what's going on. And that was kind of a cool thing to be able to do. So I forget now the point of that story.
You're not trad.
Huh?
You're not traditional.
Oh, we're not traditional. Yes. Here's something else though, translation. We was talking about earlier, 99% don't do it. That's why I didn't want to do it. I had a fan come to me, a German reader, says, you're really popular. I do translations for my company, but it's really for like hotels, sports, local news, everything like that. But I think I might want to give it a shot. And so we worked out a deal. He gets 70-30, right? 30-70 in this case. No money in on his side. My wife and I went to Frankfurt, everything else. What we ended up getting going on, the book released in December, we're making really decent money in January. The second book comes out at the end of January. My expectation is it's going to rise even higher, just from the whole rapid release. They're doing an amazing job. Hack that shit. Figure it out. There's opportunities. One of the stories told to us is there's a lady who gets books, and she's got like 20 to 30 translators who are in it to win it. The translators do it for free. She does the whole push out through basically a draft to digital model. And then she has a spreadsheet to pay everybody. So she's just lines up an author, she gets 20 or 30, she rocks it, they go. So there is opportunity even if, because I'm like, I'm not paying $7,000 to do this. I don't know what the opportunities are. For those who understand that my books have a lot of cussing, a lot of creative cussing, I will tell you that I use Foul-O-Matic. Foul-O-Matic is a push button cursing generator. So if you use it, it might say, push the button, use slimy, bum, ba, bum, ba, bum. Some of them are without cuss words, some of them have a lot. And obviously, in general, it's never the one I use, but I'm like, I like those 2 words. I like that word, I like these 3 words. And so I might end up with 7 words, which people are like, you curse better than my master sergeant. Yeah, well, thank you. But I use Foul-O-Matic to do that. Now, the last thing I'd like to talk about is this book here. I don't personally know, which doesn't mean it hasn't been done, but I don't personally know an indie author with a universe that has engaged their fans and allowed their fans who were excited about learning to become an indie author the opportunity to write and be paid for a story, have it professionally edited, work with the editor, and get all of this done. And so we have 6 new indie authors that were published last week. And I'd like to have 2 of them come up here. If y'all would give them a round of applause. Natalie's on the right. Oh, is this one? No, Erica, sorry. You're right. Erica's on the right. Natalie's.
Before we start, Craig, how long do we have so you don't start shouting at us?
Oh, faster.
Okay, so, but we were just saying, like Natalie was the one who started it, said, I love this universe, I've written something. And then Michael said, anyone else want to have a go? I won't tell you all the backstory, it's also there on the website if you want to go and find like how it built up momentum. But when it came to, you wrote the story, you submitted it, you didn't get accepted, you got voted on by readers of the universe, by people, your peers, your other fans who said, is this good enough? And if it was, it made it in. If it wasn't, it didn't. And there's that sense of saying, okay, it's going to be good because someone else has already given me that validity. And then it comes out and we hit bestseller. We woke up the next morning. Opportunity to work with Lynn Steeler. She is amazing.
No, you can't have her.
Because not only did she edit the books and make them better, she told us why. She told us why that change needed to be made and how we can improve our craft for our own work the next time where she mightn't be there to hold our hand. She showed us how to turn it around quickly. You know, what to expect from science. Now, go. If you want it done out quickly by Friday, you need to... Okay, we'll do it. And we did. And it went out, and as I say, we got our orange tag, but you were like, oh, amazing. And we broke 400 in the Amazon store. I don't know how we did that, but, you know, well, I do. It was the fans who reached out. It was Michael's name who led the charge and gave us that opportunity. But what we've seen since, the consequence of this gave us information to know to take to our next level when we're going forward. What we see now is so many people who've seen that posted on the various Cursorian websites saying, can I have a go? Is there going to be another anthology? Yes, about 4 months from now, there'll be volume 2. And say, right, so I've got this idea. Can anyone give me a hand? Well, Craig's been saying about, you know, learn from those above. But we now suddenly are one step up. Or have now the opportunity to reach back and reach a hand out and say, here, well, here's what we've learned. Pass it on and help the next friend. But there's a huge level of interest and engagement from fans, names who I haven't seen before on message boards and Kindle groups and Facebook groups, who are now saying, I want to get involved. And that level of engagement, I think, is just something incredibly special that Michael, Craig, Martha, everyone in this, well, LMBPN, have created for us. We want to be part of that, and now we get to be a part of it in this incredible new way. But what I want to give over to Natalie is how, you know, what else has changed. So it's not just about other fans now having a go. Do you want to talk about what's coming up for you?
Okay, so some of you may know that I'm taking over from Scott Paul.
Okay, we can't hear you. Speak up.
Sorry. Some of you may have heard that I'm taking over from Scott Paul for the Etheric Academy series. So that's just come out of this, and before this I'd never written anything. I literally, before any of this happened, I'd read Michael's books and I was so touched that I attempted to write myself the first time, and I sent him this totally inappropriate Facebook message. Here's the story for you, Michael. Here's the story that I wrote from my heart. And he's like, I can't read this. And then he sent it over to JIT and they were like, yeah, let's go and have a look. And this is how the anthology happened. And now I'm in a position to be helping other fans to realise their writing dreams. And I think that's really special, and it's all because Michael gave me the time, and the fans are there. Everybody is supporting each other and building each other up for the next thing.
And creating a career for you.
Well, yeah, that's kind of, yeah, I'm still getting to terms with that. I'm not quite, I know it's happening, I'm almost believing it.
I think just making Michael ready.
The power of your fans is such, and I have to say the fans, Lynn, Stephen Campbell, are the ones that really kind of push this through. Your universe, if you have one, has power. Since that anthology came out, it already had a couple of hundred people interested. We have over 500 people in the Fans Writing for Fans of the Cursorian Gambit Facebook group. Word of mouth, people. Use it. Thank you.
All right, we saw this in Vegas and it worked out pretty well, bringing up all the guest speakers. And so for a question and answer session, if you have questions, you've been thinking about it during the, hey, it's a party. You've been thinking about it during the conference, come on up, you up.
Brits are good at queuing up and ask.
Is anyone gonna ask a question? To keep it quite close to her.
That was special.
I don't really know who this is best aimed at, but what would you say at the minute if you are just starting and you are beginning to outline a series, which is the position that I'm now in? Which genre is hot to trot?
Dan?
So I would say whatever genre you love most and know the tropes of most is going to be the most important. Because if you're not hitting the tropes, I'm not saying don't like blindly stick to tropes, but if you're not hitting the tropes, then it's going to hurt you on reviews and everything. Romance is always hot. I've always been stunned by how well paranormal romance has just continued to sell a ton of books.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi, a couple of questions. First one is, I think really for Barry, but you can probably join in. How would you define a good book as opposed to a great book, as opposed to a poor book?
There's a question. I have a good book, I think, with Space Team. I can only really explain it through Space Team. I set out to write something that would be entertaining for the time it took that person to read that book, and they could then forget that book and never think of it again. Now, to me, that's a good book. It's entertaining when you're doing it. It might not stay with you. It might not change your view of the world. It might not do any of that stuff. But if it can entertain you for the amount of time that you're holding that book in your hand, then that, to me, is a good book. If it doesn't, it's not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, does anyone else want to have a try?
Yeah, I've talked about this a few times in the past. I have my own definition for this. This is my definition. A good book for me is a book I like to read. A bad book is a book that I don't enjoy reading. And a great book is a book that moves me, that does more than just entertain, that just does something special. The kind of book that you come back to over and over. But my good book might be your bad book. Your bad book might be my good book. There's a lot of different tastes and styles, and that's why I never call a book bad, because it just means I don't like it. It doesn't mean that it's universally bad. Everybody's got different tastes, so there's a lot of different room for good and bad.
Clearly, you've never read a book.
One of the things I talk about, I tell when I'm discussing with people are about what is a great book. If you're in here as a business, a great book is one that sells a lot. In the literary circles of writers, everybody downplays Dan Brown, everybody downplays 50 Shades. I tell you, if a book brings in $5 million in a year, that's a great book.
I would say one of Michael's premises when he started writing the Arthurian Gambit was rereading. You give reviews and 5-star reviews and all that, but are your fans rereading your book for that emotional connection? And I think that's what makes a great book. And like Michael will tell you, it wasn't edited great right off, but it was always a great story with characters that people could relate to. And they keep rereading them. I mean, book 21's coming out, and there are people who reread from the beginning, every single book. So somebody's going to read 20 books to read that 21st book. 21 books to 50K.
Just hugging it a little bit, but I was wondering whether anyone's got any opinion on emerging markets like India and China.
Don't do it.
I had this conversation earlier with a gentleman. China is very, very difficult because of censorship. It's going to be something that's not going to be very open to indies for a while, unless you are a Chinese citizen. It's just, there's so many things their government wants you to not mention, and it's very hard for companies to, unless they're a traditional publisher and they're reading every single word, it's hard for companies in the indie market to help you get into China. India, it could be huge. It's hard to tell. They get paperbacks very, very cheaply, and so digital has not taken off over there. as much. It is a very different market. A lot of them are just reading on mobile phones, but that will continue to grow, I think.
One thing about India is on KU, they pay you almost nothing. I've got friends who write for the Indian market, and when KU came around, they're making, you could read an entire novel and you might make 5-6 cents. The other thing about China is, I talked earlier about professional organizations. SIFWA, for example, is getting very heavily involved with China, and their Chinese publishers are bringing out people to China to talk to about their books, but then you have to write them per the Chinese government's regulations. Yeah.
This is a question to each and every one of you. You're bringing out your first ever ebook. You can only do one thing to promote that book in the widest context.
I hate you.
What would that one thing be? And it can't be the thing that any other presenter has done.
I would say what makes things great is we don't have to do one thing because we're indies.
Good answer.
Me?
Yeah. Okay, you get first.
First thing to promote your book. Have a great street team. That's always a good thing. Have to get some art readers, build that up, and from doing that, they will help kind of get it out via word of mouth and that kind of thing. So.
Give me that microphone.
Write the next book.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna have to say EMS ads since.
Tattoo the cover. No, don't do that.
Get a t-shirt.
Get a t-shirt done. No, like I said, just be nice, make those connections, make the network, and let the network of good friends and acquaintances sell the book for you.
One thing that I found really effective is I started thanking reviewers on Amazon directly on the Facebook page, and a lot of them were on Facebook already haunting the fan page, and I saw that reviews go up every time I do it, and formed a Facebook group. So that was a free way to start creating those super fans, and it's simple and fun, and it reminded me to go read the reviews.
I write a prequel short story and give it away for free.
Damn it.
Okay, Facebook ads. I have made a lot. Give it over the Facebook ads.
Luckily, that wasn't actually mine. I think the most cost-effective way bang for buck to sell books is newsletter spots. I sometimes probably hundreds of their books, like do newsletter spots with them. So.
Right next to the newsletter guy too.
That's
amazing.
So if I can assume that that book hasn't been written yet, the easiest way to sell lots and lots of books is to make sure you fit the market. So I do the keyword research first, and I find out what 99% of the market is looking for and what they want right now, and I write the book that matches what they're searching for, and then I don't have to do any marketing because it shows up and they want it. So it's pretty easy.
All right, I like the options. Look at that. You don't have to pick just one thing, and actually, you don't want to strap yourself into picking just one thing.
What about the
When you leave here, if you look out on the table right there, you'll see some bookmarks. Those I put them out there. There's a few left. Very cheap, and if you go to a convention or anything like that, you put them down. People snap those up, but more than business cards.
For Audible books, though?
Pardon me?
The question was about audio books, so.
No.
Any books.
Did you say audio
Your first ebook.
Oh, ebook, I'm sorry.
You can do stickers for ebooks and autograph them and hand those out, and that way they get an autograph.
So I would try to get the most interrupt to keep the book from being published. Get a book about future Bill.
No one said cover.
Going on the basis that obviously probably 100% of us are all doing this as fiction, but knowing so many.
No, we have some non-fiction.
Yeah, okay. But I know so many writers that are trapped in the traditional publishing industry as reference writers in science, and they're all desperate to find a way. I mean, are any of you aware of any trends for people like that in this? Because they don't seem to be able to find a way in. At least it's not worked for them. Are you aware of any?
I think it's the same for everyone, really.
For science?
I actually do. So in the States, Champlain College is part of forwarding a initiative for professors from various universities around the country to co-author books or to author sections of books, and then professors can then go on and order slices of different books and to kind of create their own textbooks or order copies of the textbook through the Champlain College's publishing program. But they're not the only ones doing it now. They were the ones who spearheaded it, and there's now at least a dozen other colleges and universities involved. I'm not completely familiar with all of them, but this is a growing thing over in the States. I don't know where it's at in the UK right now.
Thanks.
Hi, my question's mostly about writing habits, because I think myself, similar to Martha, I'll write in the morning and then I'll try and squeeze the time where I can into my lunch breaks at work because I've got the full 9 to 5 deal. But how have your writing habits changed, and what does your sort of writing day look like from when you first started to sort of now that you guys are sort of full time and doing a big deal?
I lose a big chunk of my day because of conferences. I actually started the same, so I'm probably not the right model. I started full-time. That's when I started writing, it was full-time. So
because I work
yeah,
full-time.
we have a...
And managing university and writing. So what saves me is doing really thorough beats with Michael, and I don't start writing the book until I'm absolutely positive every scene is absolutely worked out, and that doesn't take too long. Then I know I'm not going to run into a wall and sit there staring thinking, what happens now? And then I put it, cut and paste it into Scrivener so that I can move them around till it fully forms a book. And then it becomes willingness to keep typing. It's easier to edit something. So it's much better to keep going and come back and read it later. And often, surprisingly, I read it later and think, ooh, that was better than I thought. So, and then, we fortunately have the just-in-time readers who will tell me that I changed someone's name or something mysterious happened. So those are fixable as long as there's words on the paper, and it really becomes a question of accountability to yourself. And you just have to keep going and not do that precious thing of there's no muse, no one cares. No one cares.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah.
So I keep really, really busy with the covers that these guys give me. So, but it's really, really important to write every single day. And so as much as possible, unless something is really, really desperate, I write every single morning. I get up in the morning, I go to the office, I don't turn on email, I don't look at messages or anything like that. I just open my book and start writing. And it works quite well for me at the moment because the Americans don't wake up till midday for me. So I write in the mornings, go and have lunch, come back, messages start popping up because these guys are waking up. But it's just really important to write every day as much as possible.
Like what Andrew makes it seem like we just sleep until noon every day.
You do. I do this full time. I do. I do this full time. But the way I put out a novel a month, almost every month for like a year and a half now, and I do that by a word count quota. So sometimes I'm not feeling it in the morning, and so if you don't have all that time, since you have a full-time job that still goes around, I won't. That word count quota will be done before that end of that day. Well, I do as much as I can, and then I'm a pantser. I can't outline for shit.
What's your quota?
It started out as 2,500 and now it's 5,000, but I've gone up as high as doing 10 or 12 if I'm like at the end and I'm like, oh God. So I do that, and in order to do that, that keeps me on it, and I write down the numbers, and if I don't match it, I don't go to bed. And if you keep that promise to yourself, you'll get a lot of books done.
I think mine's relatively similar to Felina's. So I was working a full-time job, and I was lucky enough I had a train ride where there was no cell phone reception through the train ride. So I had 45 minutes there and 45 minutes back every day where I could write. And I wrote an hour at lunch, and I wrote a little bit in the evening. I could hit 3,000 to 4,000 words a day pretty easily because I could do 1,000 words an hour. And so I was getting 4 hours in. When I wrote full-time, my word count dropped to like 1,000 words a day. Because it took a while to get a habit in place, because I had at least the structure in my day that told me when I could write. And then when I went full-time, I didn't, and I had to it took me almost a month to figure out when I could write and when it would work. And eventually it just turned into all the time. But when I first went full-time, I thought I can do like 4 books a year. And then actually some folks here, like especially Michael Anderle, inspired me, and actually May Sage and Felina too, because they were pumping out books like crazy. And I thought, well, I can just, if I put my butt in the chair more, I can do it. And what I found is that I can actually do 8,000 words a day without that much trouble. But I do the same thing Felina does. If I don't hit my 8,000 words a day, I don't go to bed. So I'll be up there on the sofa at night, like just trying to get those. I'll be like half asleep, and I'll like wake up and there's a page with Z's, you know. But if I let myself sort of start to slip and not get that word counted, then it gets a little bit worse. So yes. I have to keep at it. And it's like a job. You know, if you went to your regular job and you're like, I don't have views today, boss. I'm just gonna go home and I'll feel like it. It's how it can't work. It's also like, I don't eat. My daughter doesn't eat. My wife doesn't eat. So the words have to go on the page.
And one last thing about that, because of course, if you're doing 5,000 a day, you're going to finish that 55,000 word book, which is usually a minor 55 to 65K. Pretty fast. So then I do the editing, and so I'll go back to the first draft, and then I do it I call them scenes because I was an actor, so it's scenes, like the chapters, but I'll say I have to do this many today. And that's how I get the editing done of the second and the third draft before I send it off to the proofreaders.
Thank you. I got a question. You're saying you're relentless and you get your 5,000 words done.
Yes.
Do you ever give yourself, do you ever get stressed and think, do you know what, I'm going to take tomorrow off?
Yes, but then I cover those words the next day. So then that becomes a 7,000 word day.
And then gradually build back up till you
No, then I go back to 5,000. It always has to be at least 5,000. If I feel like I can still do more, then I will do more. And if I'm not able to hit them, recently I finished a novel when I had the flu. And they fucking loved that book. And I'm sitting here going, what? How did they, so you just have to keep showing up.
First of all, I want to thank you all so much for your time for this weekend. It's been inspirational, informational, and just... So my question is for each and every one of you, and the same rules apply as the previous gentleman. Was there a book or an event or or a moment in time or something that was sort of career transformational for you, or some turning point that helped you get to that next level in your career? Thanks.
Oh, hey, I'll serendipitous. I have the mic, and nobody will probably copy mine. I retired from my second gig at 52. I needed to do something, and I was there at home thinking about what to do. I went out and I was cleaning up my yard, and I lit myself on fire.
You're right. No one's going to say that.
I am far too dangerous to myself, so I said I need to work inside. I was wrong to write a book. I'll write a book. So lighting myself on fire.
With me, I wrote my first book while I was in Iraq, just because there's not. If you run, they shoot you. And what else are you going to do? We didn't have internet and all that kind of stuff. And I went vanity press route because I had no intention of publishing. I just wanted to have copies to give to my family and friends. And I paid $470 to get 20 books. And I thought, and then I was done until I met a guy with a Kindle at the airport. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. That's a Kindle. I have a book. And he looked it up and said, no, you don't. So for me, I said, well, I have this novel I wrote. I've got it still on Word. So I uploaded it to Amazon and sold 400 copies in the next 2 weeks. So that was how I got my next step up. 99 cents, so I didn't make a lot.
For me, I wrote my first book around 2010 and actually published it around 2013, but I had no idea about the indie market. So I kind of just left it, forgot about it, and it just dropped off the charts. A few years went by, and I was looking to get into doing book covers, so I started doing some research, and then I saw that certain people were actually making a living at this shit. So, okay, I have a book published, I need to do more, and that was kind of a light bulb moment for me that actually people could actually make a living from writing books. I had no idea. So that was the moment for me.
For me, the biggest turning point, I think, was August 2016. Now, I had been publishing since 2010, and I had had 1 month that I hit 4 figures on in all that time. So I kept funneling along, and I would take breaks and not publish anything for 4 or 5 months sometimes, and then I would get back in, and I jumped from thing to thing, and I was doing all of the things wrong that everybody has ever done. And I had a nice chat in summer of 2016 with T.S. Paul, and he gave me some very, very good advice about re-releasing some old stuff that I had, and I got things straightened out, and I released a good series with a rapid release, with good covers, excellent stories, and decent blurbs, and I've never had a month that wasn't at least 4 figures since then. So that was a big changing moment where I just started doing the stuff right.
So I set myself on fire. Yeah, damn, already used. Okay. And specifically, like, what caused us to go to the next level? Usually the things that cause me to go to the next level is to be told I can't, or something of that nature, if you're aware of me. Yeah. So I actually had a conversation with Sean Platt from Sean, John, and Dave, where I had actually misunderstood what he was trying to express. So what I took away from it was not what he meant, but what I took away from it was somehow I was a special wallflower or a special unicorn, and no one else could accomplish what I could accomplish. So I'm like, well, fuck you. I'll get a bunch of collaborators, show them how to do this, and I'll rock this. Well, so we did, and we rocked it. The Earth-Hearing game became really large, and I talked to Sean in October and Meek, and he's like, no, I was just saying that you just happen to be able to see the wider picture better than others. Well, that was good.
Mine's probably quite a good practical one, actually, which I owe to Michael Cooper over here. My read-through between my first book and my second book wasn't great. It was about 30% or so, I think, because the first book was written almost as a standalone. And Michael said, write an epilogue. And I wrote a 1-page epilogue at the back where the villain kind of goes, I'll be back, sort of thing. And my read-through suddenly went to 60%.
Oh,
so
really?
with just adding 2 pages of text at the end of that Kindle file, my read-through rate doubled. So that's it, really.
That's pretty interesting.
It was you clear. Yeah, no way. We're so much. You're not getting it, like, but I owe you.
So I have been writing for about 30 years. I've had an agent and traditionally published and did fairly well. And then went to hear Michael Anderle speak in July 31st, 2016. And there were 90 authors in the room, all authors. And he said at the very end, I will stay as long as anyone has a question. And I had a teenager with me, a teenager writer of Space Hopper. And I wasn't going to stay because I had to get her home, but I happened to turn around and see only 3 people up there, or 2. And so I said, I'll be right back. And out of the 90 people, only 3 of us asked him a question, and only 1 of us stayed in touch. And then 6 months later, he said, well, I heard him say that, do you want to start a universe? He claims he was only asking if I wanted to do a series with him, 1 series, but I heard universe, and he never said no. And what, yeah, I didn't hear it. But the difference was that I had made a decision that whatever he said, I wasn't going to try and reinvent the wheel or argue with someone who's doing well. So whatever he wanted to do, I said, yes, I'm on board. I figured the kinks would work themselves out. and I was on for the ride. And that was a different attitude that I've had and I've kept. And so instead of trying to work against failure, I started working for success, and it's made all the difference in the world.
So for me, learning is like crack. As long as I'm learning, I'm happy. If I stop learning, it's game over and I move on to something else. That quote that I put up, you're roughly 100,000 times better equipped to experience a world that does not exist than a world that does. That was by Indiana Beagles, also known as Roy Williams, who runs a business school outside of Austin, Texas called Wizard Academy. And I took several courses there, but one was called Magical Worlds Communications Workshop, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for inspiration, education. It completely changed the way I look at art and inspired me, and inspires me to this day, even though it was about 8 years ago that I took it. So it's my nugget.
Thank you.
Mine was I was watching HBO Girls, and Lena Dunham's character had to write an ebook. It's all about this episode about the ebook, and all of a sudden I realized what the fuck is an ebook, and I started writing it. But then the first one sucked. So the point of change was when I saw Jacinda Wilder, who's a romance author, on CBS or NBC, talking about how romance had saved her house, and how she and her husband, who wrote together, God bless her, that's so awesome. Now, like, you guys are just writing sexy stuff together, that's awesome. They wrote 20 books in 6 months, and I realized, I'm like, can I do, and my first 2 books had failed miserably, and they were not in the romance genre, and I said, could I write steamy romance? I might be able to write steamy, I might write. So I sat down and wrote I never thought I'd be the type of girl to answer a sex ad. And that book ended up immediately going into, like, just became a bestseller under a pen name at the time, and that changed my life. And now I write sexy rom-coms.
I want to write that book now. Am I the kind of girl that would answer a sex ad?
I never thought I'd be the kind of girl.
Oh, so I'm a little more speculative. That's good.
Yes.
You kind of already know it. It was that we're getting the 3rd book out and then starting to advertise it. It really came down to having a bunch of books. Well, in this case, 3 that people actually wanted to read. And I completely lucked out because I had no idea what writing for market was or anything like that. And just getting them in front of enough people that they started to take off. And then it was sort of it happened. Sort of the inflection moment was as November was going on, and my wife and I realized that it was going to be a $25,000. We went $300, $5,000, $12,000, $25,000. Like that's the way the graph went. And I thought, I am actually losing money by going to my day job right now. Which is a sort of weird thing to think, like going in and getting this paycheck is costing me money. And that's when I realized I need to stop this and just write full time. It's pretty cool.
So mine's more, I'm kind of new at this. I've been doing it a couple of years, and my main problem was I kind of always thought I might want to think about being a fiction author, but I couldn't finish a whole story. I didn't have the confidence. I got lost in the middle. So I finally gave myself permission to publish half books, and I went to like 50K, and it was like the middle of my story, and I published it. And I did 5 of those, which means I didn't have to learn how to finish the story or write an ending. Like that stuff I didn't have to worry about, but it allowed me to have the confidence to publish, and also I published a whole bunch of book 1s instead of a full series, which also taught me everything about the market. So now I'm kind of just at my next turning point, which is this year. Even though I have all of these unfinished series that are out there still, I know exactly what my audience wants. I can plan one book that's going to be more successful than any of my other stuff. And now the next turning point is actually finishing a series and doing the box sets and doing the ads, which I'm looking forward to.
And I lit myself on fire.
So my question is about time management and communicating with fans. What's an appropriate amount of time to be spending talking to people like on Facebook, etc., so that you don't start taking time away from your writing time? I'm finding myself sat up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's most of you. So how do I do that?
But what do you find out? Can you tell me?
Is this one of those things that we just have
first.
to...
I think Andrew Devell answered it first. You write first. You carve out that time.
Okay. No, so I do that in the morning. I have a couple of sessions free out there. I have a morning session, I have an evening session, and then I sit talking to you all till about 2 o'clock in the morning. And this is over school night, so
School night.
Not my school night, my daughter's school night. But I have to be up in the morning to take her to school and be pleasant and not murder her. So any tips? Like,
You gotta tell yourself no. You're getting, my feeling, I don't know this to be true, you can answer it, is you are engaging and you're getting the dopamine hit from being part of this and communicating. And the reality is we're not going anywhere at all. So
we'll still be there tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll still be there tomorrow.
We'll be
You got,
pinging Andrew.
yeah, we'll be pinging him. But anyway, permit yourself to say, hey, I've got an hour. Just like you have a session for your writing, I've got this for Facebook.
so that's not rude.
No.
I'm still struggling with the social,
No, just say, hey, sorry, I've got to go do something with my daughter, and we'll all go, shit, that's more important.
Yeah,
Family
but
first.
I don't have any problem at that time, but when I'm on my time, I feel like.
No, that's, how many people have a problem with that? Where you have a situation, yeah, I see a few hands, go ahead and put them up. Who have a problem understanding is like someone asks you a question, I gotta answer it.
Yeah,
I do
that's
too.
what I mean.
I have an issue with that, and I'm learning to go through that. And part of it is, I'm so damn busy, I don't remember to go there anymore. But I know that's hurting me from a marketing perspective, that I'm not there as much. So I need to set an amount of time that I can do this. But just realize that everybody is also busy, and a lot of us are also going, well, you answered, so I gotta answer. And so we go back and forth.
That's the loop I keep getting stuck in. Somebody sends a message and I feel like I'm obligated. So
Yeah.
Can I just throw something out? Because it's setting an expectation that people know what time you are available and make it so that is the time you're available. That's when people will accept that the other hours are yours. So it's about having that.
So it's like setting business hours booked for talking.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
And just also respond on Facebook as well.
Yes.
Your message on Facebook, so if you've got your Facebook page, just send a message saying, hi, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So I'm getting something from you.
One of you, 12 of us.
What was if you were starting out, what's the one thing you would you'd avoid doing, and if you knew that now?
Being traditionally.
Yeah. How many are covers?
Oh, well, covers too, yeah.
Covers, I would have done those so much, and editing, but honestly, the real answer is that I wouldn't have done the editing different because I wouldn't have gone through that shit. I had such a mental attitude about editors. Some of them still suck horribly. But covers, I really wish I had done that differently.
Mine was I wouldn't do it under a pen name. I did the pen name because I was shy, and then I had to. I wasn't able to take those readers with me. They didn't understand that I came out as me, and I lost some book bloggers who also were like, I didn't realize we were writing a pen name. They don't realize, and I'm like, I had a cartoon avatar, like it wasn't. You couldn't even tell if I was a guy, and anybody can write under a pen name if you want to. I get it. I've had this talk with a lot of people, but for me, when I became successful eventually, I wanted to be the person who had done that work, because I put in, like we all put in, how many hours a day? I really wanted to be my name, and I should have done that from the beginning.
I wouldn't have waited. I heard about self-publishing, the indie movement in 2008 when Joe Conrath and Dean Wesley Smith were first talking about it. And I doodled around for 2 years before actually publishing a short story in 2010. I didn't publish a novel until 2011, and then I was slow after that. I would have jumped, like my advice would be jump in, get moving, don't wait, start now.
You're still on the leading edge of indie publishing. Most people out there don't know what this is all about and how much money you can earn and all that kind of stuff. People don't know. You're on the leading edge, so just push publish.
Push the button, push the button.
So my question is about self-care. Sorry, my question is about self-care. You've spoken, Felina, Michael, about not going to bed until I hit that word count. Martha, working kind of every spare hour, all your weekends to do it. Craig, 80 hours a week, every week.
Setting himself on fire.
For the last, I don't know how many months. And I think, when is there time for you? Or how do you build it in? Or is writing such a joy, I don't find it work?
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
That can be arranged.
So how do you build in time for recharging and refreshing yourself so that you're not burning out by the pace, so that you can sustain it even longer term? I suppose where I'm going to go to.
So when I accepted to do the university, I was already working full time, and I knew I was writing a series. So I also knew that the margin of error was narrow for self-care. So I took up yoga and swimming because they're meditative, and I could take a quick break, and it was the right kind of dopamine hit. And I made sure I go to bed by a certain hour so that I can get up early. I mean, it was a lot of choices had to be made, and I had to recognize I was making them. Nobody was doing it to me. I was gratefully wanted to do this. And I am doing this with the expectation that at some point I can stop the day job. So for me, this it's like I'm making an investment, like he was saying, in the bank of goodwill. This is my bank of a different life. But I do understand that if I eat a lot of junk food, if I don't get exercise, I'm probably not going to sustain it. And when people, I turn down invitations to go out to dinner a lot of the time because I've made a choice for now, and this is the one I want. So, and I recognize it was my choice. Nobody's doing this to me. Nobody feels sorry for me. I'm doing great. But then I do have, the balance for me is making sure there's some kind of exercise and et cetera. So that's how I do it.
I'm a dedicated gym rat. I go to the gym regularly, and that's on my schedule. Nothing interferes with that. And that's actually when I get a lot of my mental stuff done and working out plot points. So between the gym, eating healthy, and then conventions, things like this. I don't write at conventions. I don't write in the airplane on my cell phone. So these going to these conventions and meeting the fans rejuvenates my mind, and it's also lets my fingers heal and all that kind of stuff. So between the three of those, that's how I take care of myself.
There's that expression, creativity, and to get creativity out, you have to do some other things sometimes to get your ideas, get the mind flowing.
Ooh, there's a new hack on that. This is not the answer to your question. I used to read 5 books a weekend. Start writing, I can't read 5 books in 6 months, right? So there's a lot of that. I went to the comic book store last weekend and bought $250 worth of comic books and different things. I'm not a comic books guy, but there are some really compelling stories and really cool. I got inspired by just one pane of a $4 comic book. That one pane could be an idea to start a series that can grow to be obviously 5-6 figures. So hack your stuff. But anyway, not your answer, but there you go.
During my first year, I suffered from TOS because I was writing so much, which is thoracic outlet syndrome, which is you have a nerve that's running down between your clavicle and your first rib, nerve and an artery, and the muscles get very tight when you're sitting forward like this all the time. And I'd wake up in the middle of the night with numb hands and blue arms, literally blue, and I couldn't move them. And I was really worried that I'd have to go back to Canada and have surgery and all that. So I started looking up stretches and small things that I could do throughout the day, getting up, walking around, taking a break, getting a drink, and just setting myself a time limit of the amount of time that I was sitting there forward with my hands writing, and then reverse that by stretching, and that made a world of difference. It's gotten a lot better since then. So.
Yeah, I wanted to answer this one because I'm probably the laziest on the panel. I don't like to work. I don't like to work hard. I work a couple hours a day. I watch TV 8 or 10 hours. I eat junk food all the time. I don't work out. I don't exercise. So my point is, you don't need to have this, work really hard to make millions of dollars lifestyle. I'm very happy making 5 or 10 grand a month without working very hard, and that's my choice. And I get to travel full time. I would like to be putting out more books. I'd like to be, making more money with my books, but I also don't need to be, because once you reach a certain level, you can maintain it on an hour or two a day. You can write 2,000 words a day, in an hour or two, and take the rest of the day off. And if you write that much, that's enough to put out a book every month or two, and that's all you really need.
You talked about quotas for writing, so many words per day. How about for the business side, for the publishing side? What sort of metrics do you put on yourself, or how many hours per day, per week would you say you do or recommend that we do as indies?
As much as you need to.
I tend to break up my day into writing time and publishing time, so they're two different hats. And I get up at 6 and I write 6. I get up at 6, I spend 10 minutes just crying because it's 6 o'clock in the morning. and then write until about 8:30 to my daughter's school, and then I come back and I write till 12. And then it's kind of 1 o'clock through to 3 o'clock is my publishing time. In those 2 hours every day, I will work out what my marketing plans will be going forward. I'll schedule newsletters and so I do 2 hours a day is basically my schedule. That makes sense? Because I kind of forgot the question how we're doing.
2 hours a day.
So I do a lot of stuff because I've got 7 co-authors and I'm putting out 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, 7 books a month. Well, 7, not 7 yet, but April will be the 7 book month. And what I find though is that I can spend all day doing that stuff. I can spend all day tooling around ads. I can be engaged with my fans on Facebook and so on and so forth. But I set myself a requirement that I have to be writing by 10 o'clock in the morning, and I have to then hit my crazy word count of 8,000 a day. Not because I was trying to beat you, just because I've been pre-orders.
I'm all good.
I've got 12 pre-orders right now on Amazon, so I'm a little bit nuts person. But so I've got to be writing by 10 o'clock in the morning. So that means I've got to be as efficient as possible doing all the business stuff, because I'm only got from 10 in the morning until when I pass out on the sofa. And actually, I do spend there's 4 hours a day that I don't write. So I've got some time where I'm actually not always writing. 4 hours a day where I'm not doing business or writing. So I've got a small amount of time I have to get it in.
This is the guy that on a panel in Vegas was sat with his laptop and published while he was sat on the
It was during this part of the Vegas when I published a book while I was up here. It had to get out, The time was the hour. More like, I don't want to lose the Amazon pre-orders.
Just a quick follow-up. How many of you have done any writing this weekend?
I don't write at conventions. I need my little desk with my screen. I don't like to write airplanes.
Being a Marine, he is very like, I have to have this.
My chesty doll looking at me.
That's right.
My question's kind of on what I think I got from your talk, Michael. It was, if I picked the stuff wrong, please correct me now. But you kind of implied that the future is universes, possibly, not like predominantly, but that there are people, like Kristen Painter, for example, has developed a universe, which I think may have been inspired by you. But there's a lot of Kindle World authors that think they have a universe, like Deborah Holland. She has and she's invited me to write it, but it's different to what you do in that individual authors who have their worlds don't necessarily promote other people, and they don't put their names on the book. So my question is, I don't think you'll be doing a historical romance world, possibly, but would somebody in your team that is learning from you to do a world, could you then see them moving on to their own world in a totally different genre? Like, not explain that very well, but say with Martha Carr, if you had somebody like Martha Carr who was a name in historical fiction, say you got Victoria Holt, she came back from a seance, and she started doing historical fiction with you, and you told her how to do it all, would they then move on to do their own worlds that we could do it?
Well, I certainly can't speak to the ones who want to continue on, right? But I do know that there are at least a couple of collaborators which have created their own worlds. So I would presume that it would continue that way. Now, whether or not they go to historical romance, I don't know. But certainly, if you make it be aware that there's going on. Now, I asked a group of people about going into Kindle Worlds before I started, and they had already convinced me within 30 seconds I shouldn't do it. But they were so vitriolic about it, I had to wait 5 minutes. I know, I get it. No, please stop. No, I understand. Don't do it. Yes, I lose this too. Okay. And so that's one of the reasons that Criterion Gambit, of course, is the way it is. I'm not a fan of Kindle Worlds, just for various reasons, not the least of which is you really can't sell it worldwide. Yeah. You can't advertise it. There's so many.
We can't sell it in the UK because we can't get it.
Yeah, so for me as a writer, no. I'd hook up with one of the others. I think that universes are going to be more prevalent. But I don't think they're going to be the only thing that goes forward. I think there are going to be plenty of individuals that are creating amazing series all by themselves and doing really, really well.
Thanks. I have a speech to that.
Hello, thank you everybody. So yeah, I was just going to ask, what book has had the biggest impact on you? And that might be a personal development book, it might be a fiction book that just really inspired you or changed the way you saw the world, or might be a craft book. And I'm going to write them all down.
For me, my mother's boss when I was young was a rather wealthy lady, and she had a library in her house, and she would keep it stocked with kids' books. For when children visited, they would always be able to take one. And the first Hardy Boy book made me a reader for life.
Mine's really two books. First is Don Quixote. I read that when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I was just amazed that you can have a world like that. And then when I was about 10 years old, I read Andre Norton's Starman's Son, AD 256, I think it was. And I couldn't, 2250, okay, thank you. I just was totally gobsmacked that you could have a world that you imagined. And I thought that was just, I've read it since then, and I'm like, wow, I guess I was young when I read it. But at the time, it was just totally blew my mind. So I think those are the two books that really affected me.
My mind's gone a little blank, but I suppose more recently for me, in terms of my writing, I suppose the two Michael's books and creating a universe, and creating something big with lots of different series in it. That's had a big effect on me and how I'm going to go forward.
So for me, this is actually kind of easy. When I was 4 years old, I could sort of read, but I listened to my parents and some friends talking about the Tolkien universe, Middle-earth, as I was falling asleep, and it inspired me to want to read better. So when I was 5, I read The Hobbit.
Oh, wow.
And I learned how to use a dictionary in the process because my mom got tired of me asking, what does this word mean? I went on from that to read The Lord of the Rings when I was 6 and to write my first short story when I was 7, and that's pretty much set me on my course for life.
I read a lot, but what I'm going to say is when I was reading T.S. Powers' books, and I'm looking at this and I'm going, I can write this well. I enjoyed it. I can write this well, I think. And that's kind of what started it.
Mine's a little bit different, actually. I was, when I was younger, I didn't read books, I read comics all the time. And my teacher in school hated comics and used to ridicule me for reading comics. Quite a painful memory. And then there was a new library opened up in my little town where I live in Highlands, and we all went to it with the school, and the teacher made me stand up and tell the librarian that I read comics, and she really kind of belittled me while I was doing it, and the librarian said, oh, hang on a minute. And she went through the back and she brought this massive stack of comics out and said, read these. But then from there she got me hooked on books, and she started going, oh, you're reading that kind of sci-fi comic, have this science fiction book. And I would start going in and asking her for, I say, what book about robots? And she would say, I've got a book about robots. I say, well, a book about monsters, and she would say, I've got a book about monsters. And one day, and I said, I want a book about ninjas, because I had become obsessed with ninjas for reasons I can't quite remember at the moment. Possibly. But then she said, I haven't got a book about ninjas. But she said, wait there, and she went through the back and came back with a notebook and said, write a book about ninjas. And I wrote this story, and she put my name on the spine of it and put it on the shelf in the library. So that book was, it was like a light bulb. Oh my God! So that book that didn't exist, that ninja book, is the one that kind of most affected me.
Well, mine will not get applause like that. But I'm going to talk about a book I recently discovered that somebody was so on fire about that's motivational. It's called Radical Acceptance. And it totally, I loved it so much I bought it for everybody I know. How often does that happen? And it's because it totally changed the way I looked at adversity or frustration, and instead I learned to embrace it. It has totally changed everything for me. So if you're looking for, you know, that feeling of dread that comes up that you do anything to get it to go away and you can't stand it, this actually turned it around so that I accept it and it actually filters away on its own. And so you don't walk around with that, And it's called Radical Acceptance, Tara Brach, and it's amazing.
So I've read a lot of books on craft and could recommend tons of them, but there is one novella that I've read 6 times and I'll continue to read it at least once a year for the rest of my life probably. It's taught me more about prose and character than any other book I've read. It's called The Body, and it's by Stephen King. And it's what became Stand By Me. And it's absolutely fantastically written. Recommend.
I have 2 on the same note of Martha Carr, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Like yesterday, my presentation, I did not pre-write that. I knew what I wanted to talk about, but I went out there and I got really, really nervous because I didn't have it. I'm not an outliner, I can't. I just don't work that way. My brain does not work that way. So I sat out there and I got myself in the present moment and I allowed myself to be present, and I did that because of all the practice I've done from that book. And the second one is The Hunger Games, because I realized you could write present tense first person, and I fucking love doing that. So that's what I do with my books now, and I absolutely love it. It just makes it like I'm actually in it right now, which is because I actually write it right now and don't outline it. It's like that, and then they're like that, experiencing it right now as if it's them. And I just think that's kind of amazing. So Suzanne Collins is awesome.
So mine's not a book. It's Return of the Jedi. So I was 5 years old. I did not know that theater. I grew up in an evangelical Christian household. I didn't know that there was such a thing as fiction books. Really, I didn't know that there were things that were called movies. I had no idea that these things existed. I certainly had no idea that something like science fiction existed. So I got invited to a birthday party that my mother got me into because I wanted to hang out with my older brother. And it was one of my older brother's friend's birthday party, so I tagged along. My older brother hated the fact I was there. And they took us to the movie theater. I had no idea what this was. I sat right in the front, and then Star Wars came on, and my 5-year-old brain melted. I don't, like, at the time, I had no idea what was. I didn't even know that fiction was real. I thought this must happen. Like, this is going on right now in the world. Although it just did a long time ago, and I had to pick that part up. So, but I think that my 5-year-old brain was just screaming this the entire time I was watching that movie, and that transformed my life. It just made me realize that I could imagine anything, and that I could create it, and it would be awesome.
So I think one of mine is after college, I was back in Oregon figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. And I saw one of Joanna Pence's first books, which I think is Pentecost. And I saw it in a secondhand bookstore in Oregon. And I thought, I kind of knew her platform already. And I was like, that's kind of amazing that her self-published novel is in a secondhand bookstore in Oregon or on the other side of the world. So that impressed me. And I got in touch with her. I got into the self-publishing scene, and I got to work with a lot of authors for the last decade. And now I'm an author, which is kind of exciting. So for the first time, I'm in the position of the people that I've been helping for the last many years.
That's superb. I was raised, my brother's a lot older than me, so he had the Robert E. Howard, all the Conan collection, and The Hobbit, of course. Life-changing reading that book.
We just got 2 more questions and we're wrapping it up.
Are you people who actually plan ahead? And do you have a vision for yourselves in 5 years' time? And would you mind sharing it with us, please?
Here's somebody who knows what they're going to do in 5 years. We found one.
I have absolutely no idea. And I get asked that all the time. With Reeds here, you're going to exit or you're going to sell, you're going to keep going. I have no idea. I had no idea where we would be right now 3 years ago. We just keep going as we go. We make 1-year plans because we're a small company, and I think you're all small companies. Sorry, Michael, bigger company.
When you speak.
We do 1-year plans at the maximum, and I don't think anyone really needs to do 5-year plans.
I'm the same. I really don't plan ahead that much because I think the world's constantly evolving and changing right now and very quickly. And so just paying attention and reacting as necessary is more my strategy for the next few years.
The only thing I'm really planning on right now, other than just continuing writing, is my mission right now is to get indies fully integrated with traditional publishers, specifically within SFWA and science fiction. I want everybody on the same playing field, and I've been working my butt off now to get books nominated for Nebulas. I'm running for director of SFWA, maybe higher later on if that works. But that's my main thing is right now to get indies on an even par, even though we make a lot more money, so we're ahead, but on an even par with some of the other people.
Just to probably just be a bit more successful with my writing and build the world and that kind of thing, but also to continue working with some great people and get some great artwork out there. That's really what it is for me.
So by 5 years from now, I want to be him. More serious note, like 5 years, that'll be between 60 and 75 more novels. And yeah, I'd like to start building a universe and bring on co-authors at some point during that time frame. And I think that, like expanding my practice, expanding what I do, and just looking for the new things, whatever they are, there are gonna be lots of them. Do those.
I have 3 potential options, one of which is I've sold out. And by that, what I really mean is that there's an opportunity, obviously, that if we build the company up, and this means everybody kind of does part of it as well, someone can come in and say, we'll give you $50 million for that, and I'll be like, oh.
Only 50?
Yeah, actually, I wanted 100 million.
Okay.
But I was, yeah, 100 million was actually my first goal.
I'm like,
Yeah.
Listening, Michael, pay attention.
Yeah, really, no doubt.
Yeah, don't you watch Shark Tank to know how much a company's worth now?
No, those guys are dicks. But that being said, one of the other options, obviously, is this company grows and continues to grow because it's always fun. That's kind of important to me at that point. It's important to me to kind of get all of this real estate I seem to acquire paid off and other things like that. But it's also fun for me to figure out what's the next step. Who am I helping next? How am I helping them? And get into entertainment, which is what we do. We're entertainers. We happen to be able to create a product that doesn't cost very much for us to be able to get out, right? That's kind of the thing. So we make really good money on that. Then you go to audiobooks, a little bit more of an investment, a little bit less of an income stream a lot of times. And then we go into video, which we're already working on. And so we're looking at different ways to accomplish that, but I want to hack that too. It just takes a lot longer to hack videos. Some of the other things that we're getting into include working with traditionally published authors and moving them over to our dark side. And I think we have some opportunity to do that. Certainly publishing more, publishing faster, publishing better. How do we hack that? How do we make it easier? When I started 26 months ago, the expectation wasn't that it took 3 months. No, we don't do that. And I know that others don't do that either, because it's evidence of what Craig and others have said on here. And so we're moving the industry quicker. And then finally, the last thing is, I've stopped writing. I do have this little kind of concept that once I've accomplished these things, I worked really hard for 3 years, I've slowed down. The infrastructure's in place. One of the benefits, or one of the things I guess I hope everyone understands, and maybe I haven't said, I've got infrastructure. I've got a gentleman that works full time, and I've got editors that work full time, and I have connections with artists that work a lot. It's not all me. So please take that away, that right now, wherever you're at, it's not all me what I'm doing. That includes the people like Craig or Martha, Abby, Meg Sutton, and then we have Erica and Natalie. Names and faces escape me. Anyway, there's a lot of us doing this. So if you're alone and you prefer to work singularly, that's awesome. Do that, and do that awesomely. And if you like to work with others, that's okay too. There's a bunch of ways up that mountain. But anyway, I don't know where it's going to go. I never knew where I was going to be now. I would like to be personally the company in 5 years doing 25 to 50 million, So I'm thinking, next year I'd like to do 10.
I can't figure out where to go on holiday this year. We're trying for 3 months, so planning is not my strong point. Every time I try to plan anything, it's gone wrong. But when I don't plan, good things seem to happen. So as long as I'm having fun in 5 years, I'll still be doing it. Is my strategy.
Space Team 45.
Yeah. The bottom of the barrel.
It's hard to follow this guy. I'm not sure how to so my goal is in 5 years is to be at 0 personal debt and to have a nest egg put away and to still be having fun and haunting Anderle right behind me. I enjoy work. I do it now. I enjoy working in collaborations so much that I really do not want to go back to being an island, and my ego does not need to make all the decisions at all. So I really am very fortunate that I would really like to be doing what I'm doing now and just see where it takes me and at 0 debt.
I still plan to be doing this in 5 years because I love it, but my goal, I guess, is to retire my parents and pay off my brother's mortgages. They work really, really hard, and I don't have a mortgage, so I might as well get somebody. And also maybe live in one place long enough to keep a plant alive. That would
I will definitely still be writing, and probably still in the Cocker Brothers, the universe that I've been writing in, because they keep having babies. And no, but I actually am going to take my acting and film background. I'm making my own films. So I'm going to start, I have a screenplay I already wrote, and I'm going to do it indie style, like Ed Burns does, and a handful of others that do it low budget, and I'm going to put it out on Amazon Prime. And I already obviously know how to self-publish and how to get the word out, and I'm taking my readers with me. So by 5 years, I think I'm going to have at least 2 films under my belt. I'd like to do a film a year that I'm actually acting in and directing and doing all that jazz. The guys can do it, I can too. And then still write the books, but probably less books when I'm doing the movies.
So I want to finish a series. I'm like currently simultaneously running like 17 series or something like that. It's 12 published, but 17 are like in the works. So I really want to finish the story. I think it'd be really cool to do that. With 5 years, we're talking like sometime in 2022, 23. I hope to have around 250 to 300 novels out at that point as well. And it's not because I'm trying to beat anyone. I just have this story that I'm trying to tell that's just going to take that much to do it. I want to get done before I die. And actually, some of like the nest egg thing, like I have no retirement fund. I have no debt other than mortgage, but I need to build up money that I can now rest on. And I was a software developer for a really long time. I figured I'm really good at software development. I've never been unemployed. I've actually sometimes been employed by 2 or 3 companies at the same time. I've got skills. But I thought, I don't want to be banging out software when I'm 70 years old. That doesn't sound like fun at all. So I want to try and, while I'm young, this is why I say I'll sleep when I'm dead. While I'm young, I'm going to do as much work as I can to build as much as I can. And then I can kind of, at some point relax as well and own lots of property like Michael does. Great. I'll be able to buy some of your property.
Yeah, that would work out really well. But I suggest not starting a book series with the premise 1,000 battles happened at the same time.
Next book.
So I'm going to sell 1 million books and buy a castle before the zombie apocalypse.
Could you make a low point in your life, or the lowest point in your life, or the lowest point in your publishing career, and tell us how you got over it, or what helped you get over it?
Going out with a bang.
What was the lowest point in your publishing career? And how did you pull yourself out of it?
Just 3.
No.
The question was, what was the lowest point in your life and how you got out of it? Now, it could be a publishing career, but
entire life.
Yeah.
Lowest point in your life. Well, three answers.
So in 2008, you might all remember there was a recession. And I was a syndicated columnist in newspapers because newspapers will always be around, right? And I also did ghostwriting and was traditionally published. It all went poof. And I had one ghostwriting job that was keeping me alive. And I had really good newspaper journalists calling me for comfort, so I wasn't going to tell them, hey, I'm in the same boat as you. I lived in New York City, where Bernie Madoff was upping the ante with the recession, and then pretty much sold everything I owned. I was down to, it's a joke now, 3.5 chairs, a bed, and a dresser. And then I was diagnosed with terminal cancer.
Oh my God.
I'm laughing, so it's okay, I'm still here. And publishing had kind of halted. You know, we were in that weird place where the traditional ones were panicking and the new stuff had just started, but I was too proud to go in that direction because, you know, I had an agent and I'm special. So that was probably the lowest point, but at no time did I ever say, here, I'm choking myself up, that's awful. At no time did I say, here's where I give up. And also, the terminal cancer, I had to relearn how to walk and was told you'll never walk normally again. Still didn't give up. So I went on Twitter. Here's where it started to turn. Well, first of all, I didn't die. That was... I went on Twitter because my agent said I needed to learn how to use it, and I was told that you start conversations. And so I threw something out there about learning how to walk again, and somebody said, we'd like to sponsor you, and we have somebody who can train you, and we own a skydiving, and so you can jump out of a plane. And I thought, well, there's no way they're in Chicago, so I won't have to do it. They were in Chicago. And I have a hard time turning down challenges, which Michael will tell you. If you want to get me to do something, just challenge me, and all of a sudden I have to do it. But so it turned out this guy was a chi trainer, which he trained people in triathlons and with severe traumatic injuries, and so I ended up doing a 5K, which actually meant more to me than jumping out of the plane, but I did jump out of the plane. And so this hard time actually turned into my message. My mess turned into my message, but there was never a moment when I said, you know, I think I'll stop writing, or I think I give up here. I mean, I would move to Chicago and was diagnosed almost immediately, so I knew no one, had no money, 3.5 chairs. So I went and literally this group of, this meeting I went to, I handed out flyers at the door for my 50th birthday. Why not? And so, and people showed up, and that's how I met them. And then I got diagnosed, and they started showing up at my door, and they'd say, you know, they didn't really know me. So no matter, you know, look where I am now. I just bought my dream house. Oh, I'm choking myself. I just bought my dream house. I went from 3.5 chairs, making arrangements to pay the rent in an apartment that was the size of the bedroom I'll have shortly, and actually having a very good time. So here I am now. I'm in a universe standing up here in London, and I will probably retire from a job I love. You know, I'm 58. If there's another day, then you should hang around, because you might go to a meeting and, you know, Michael Anderle is talking, and you're the smart one who went up and started talking and then emailed him later and just kept saying yes. So, you know, you think and I was writing thrillers, which no one cared about. We make jokes about that's my hamburger money, everybody. And so wherever you are and how worried you are staring at the ceiling at night, you know, I had 3.5 chairs, and also I had no health insurance, and every doctor would say, I won't see you. And they knew that I was in trouble. And so one clerk on a phone said to me, and I wish I remembered who he was, there's a grant, you should go apply. So I went and applied for the grant. I did not tell the woman on the phone that I had weeks before this would really be over. And the grant normally took 6 to 8 weeks, which was too long, but I had no control over it. And I don't know why, but she walked the paperwork around from building to building and stood there. sorry, and made them answer her, and she would call me on the phone and say, this is what they need, and I would find a way to send it in one day. So that woman actually was more responsible for saving my life than all the rest, because I suddenly had free medical coverage at Northwestern Hospital. And then I went into spontaneous remission, and they still don't really know why. And now I annoy Michael for years to come.
I hope you've had a great conference, 2 full days of information overload in some cases, little tidbits. As we always say, it's a smorgasbord. The smorgasbord is out there, it's a buffet. You pick and choose what will work for you. We are not prescriptive. You don't have to do anything except find the readers willing to pay for your work. And that is what will carry you through. You see success stories up here, there's success stories out there. People willing and able to write books. Work hard at the right things. Write better books. Every time you write better words from one word to the next. Improve your craft, listen to people, and just keep doing better. 20 Books London.